What's up, you guys? Matt Jablonski here with The Point of Change. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, a huge thank you to you guys. I was going to be doing this tonight at like 7 o'clock Central, but at church today, they said that they're doing a worship and prayer evening tonight at around 6:30, and I'm feeling really led to attend that. Something's telling me I should be there. So thank you guys for being so awesome about changing schedules and stuff like that and being ready to make that next maneuver. So thank you guys for showing up a little early. I appreciate it. As most of you know, my recovery date is February 3rd, 2017. So as of Friday, I hit 6 years meth free. Woo! So thank you guys for all your support along the way. I really appreciate everybody for putting up with my nonsense and encouraging me along the way as we've traveled this road. What's up, guys? All kinds of people here today. Good. Come on in, guys. Come on in. We're just getting started. So throw some hearts up, likes and loves, and share this out if you don't mind. There are stars available on this broadcast too. So if anyone feels led to throw up stars, don't be shy on that one. If anyone feels led to become a subscriber to The Point of Change, if you've been here for a while and you really love the value you get here from The Point of Change, you want to get involved a little more on that and help us with our monthly donations and stuff like that, there is a green badge at the bottom of the screen. You can sign up to be a supporter. Or if you'd rather hear my story first, then stick around here and you'll hear where I'm from and what I went through to get me to where I am today. And then you can decide if that's something you'd like to do or not. Oh, let me get some comments here. Let's see. What's up, Josh and Lori? What's going on? My mama's here. Hey, mama, good to see you. Daniela, congratulations on 6 years. So amazing. Thank you, Daniela. I appreciate that. Sealed Lips Destroy. Anna's here. Hey, Maddie, I'm here and excited to hear your story. Right on. Awesome. I'm glad you're excited for it. What's up, Amanda? Good to see you. Josh and Lori, congratulations, brother, on 6 years. I appreciate it, man. I really do. Mike, what's up? Congrats once again. Thanks for starting up this POC family. We love you, bro. God bless. God bless, Mike. Thanks for being here, brother. Tonight, we're going to glaze over my addiction. I don't want to spend too much time buried in the dinosaur doo-doo, as it were, but we're going to talk about that for a little while here, just so you know where I was. So it's a little, so in case somebody out there is where I was, you kind of know you're not alone and that you can make it out of that. And just to kind of tell you guys where I was. Introduce myself for anybody who's new here. My name is Matt Jablonski. I'm a recovering meth addict. I have, as of Friday, 6 years meth free. I found recovery through harm reduction and moderation, something that a lot of people nowadays are calling in slang terms California sober. I don't really like that term. I feel like that's kind of misleading. So I say that I've reached a successful recovery through harm reduction and moderation. Cannabis has been a big help to my recovery, but that's not all that my recovery is based on as well. I also do a lot of outreach, do a lot of service work. I have The Point of Change here. I have an amazing support system. I'm not involved with any recovery program, and I'm not associated with any rehabs or anything like that. I'm not here trying to get heads in beds or anything like that. I'm just here as a recovering meth addict who wants to share his story and help the next person along the way. I started The Point of Change as a way to help myself express, to help share my recovery, for one, and to help myself express some of the knowledge that I have. As when I came into recovery, I really took it on myself to do a lot of research into addiction and into methamphetamine and into drugs and what they do in your brain and stuff like that, because I really had a longing to find out what happened inside of me. As I went down that road and traveled on that, I picked up a lot of knowledge that I learned could help a lot of other people. So I share that with everybody here on The Point of Change. So yeah, before we begin though, I do want to tell you guys one thing that happened right before I went live that was pretty crazy. I was uploading some pictures. I do have some pictures and some visual aids for you guys today. Woo, look at me actually doing stuff. And I was uploading some pictures from my active addiction and things from my, from my active addiction. And one thing I uploaded was a picture of my dad's house where most of my addiction took place. The depths, the really deep part of my addiction took place living in my dad's house. So I uploaded this picture of my dad's house right here and got that ready for you guys. And while I was uploading that, I got a message from an old friend that I used to use with. Her name's Amanda, and she's in recovery these days. But while that picture was uploading, I got this message. I just drove past your dad's old house, and it brought up so many memories and also triggers too. I had to go out and drop off some flyers for my sister's cancer benefit, and it really got me thinking of where we were 10 years ago and where we are now. I'm kind of getting emotional talking about this. I'm starting to cry, actually, because there's certain events, if certain events and things did not happen in our lives for us to wake up and realize what we were doing to ourselves, we wouldn't be where we are today. Look at you. You have the point of change, and your motivational speaking, helping others, helping other people. And me, I started a little later, but now I have my daughter, I have food, I have a roof over my head, I have a nice vehicle that I just got. I have everything that I need, and I just needed to message you because I felt called to do it, and you just can't ignore those callings. And then she sent me this picture of my dad's house now, as I was uploading this picture of my dad's house back in the day. And it was just one of those signs, one of those moments where it was like, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, everything, for aligning right where it should be, right in this moment. Just one of those things that really synchronizes and tells you that you're right where you're supposed to be. You're doing good, you know? So thank you, Amanda, for stepping out in that boldness and getting that call to message me and actually taking the initiative and doing it, because you have no idea how awesome that synchronized moment was and how much it really meant to me to get that picture and get that message. And it's just really a big sign that God's above me and my dad's watching over me. And I got friends that were in active addiction that are in recovery with me too. And that's freaking amazing. You know, that's absolutely mind blowing that I have. I've been very blessed with a lot of my friends from active addiction finding their way into recovery. Of course, I have the ones that didn't make it into recovery, you know, but try to stay focused on the positive, you know, and keep pushing and keep going, because we're inspiring more people to keep going, you know. So guys, let's get into it. As I said, for most of my active addiction, I lived with my dad. And here's a picture of me and my dad. I look pretty small, but I've always been pretty small. I was probably 15, 16 years old in that picture. But that's my old man there. As you can see, he really loved the shit out of me. Some would say that in my active addiction, my dad enabled me. And in ways I can see, yes, he did. He allowed me to live with him. He never kicked me out. He allowed me to use his truck whenever I wanted. He gave me money when I really worked on him to give it to me. But for better or for worse, I'm still alive today, and he gave me a place to stay, and he loved me through it. And I'm very thankful for that. But I ran him through the ringer, that's for sure. I was a meth addict for 13 years. I started using meth around 17 years old in high school, and it slowly progressed. In the beginning, I was very standoffish with meth. I knew that it was a pretty dangerous drug. I knew I was dabbling in things I shouldn't. So I didn't instantly jump all in. It took a long, slow burn and a traumatic relationship and a few other things I went through that really helped progress the addiction. It really fed into it and ended up driving me farther and farther down the road of addiction, to the point where I was, by the end of it, I was lying and stealing from my own family. Here's a picture of me at a party. I was missing teeth, never eating, never sleeping, stealing from my own family, lying continuously. The whole jazz there. Ended up back in 2014 is when I picked up my first meth charge. I actually have a picture of there's the mugshot and the headline there, Matthew Lynn Jablonski. Don't make fun of me. Yes, my middle name's Lynn. I see you out there chuckling. I see you. Stop it. Yes, that's my middle name. Matthew Lynn Jablonski of Phillips. That was a little town north of northern Wisconsin. I was 28 at that time. was charged on 11/24/2014, which means that was the day after my birthday. I was charged with possession of meth, possession of marijuana, second or greater offense, and possession of drug paraphernalia. So that is, I was set up, very, very obviously set up, but in the depths of your drug addiction, you ignore all things, you ignore negative consequences. And I knew we were being set up. I knew it, but I ignored all the red flags because I wanted to get high. We had a CI who was in the car with us. We literally gave this guy money. He said he had to go get some more money. He left on his bicycle to go get said more money. While he was gone, I decided I wanted to get a soda for the ride. So I decided to go over to the gas station and grab a soda. I go to the gas station, and while I'm going there, I see him, the guy that's supposedly going to get more money. I see him coming out of the cop shop. I see this with my own two eyes. So, so I go, that's peculiar. So I go get my soda. I head back to hook up with everybody. We're going to go get the drugs. And I tell them when I arrive, guys, I just seen the guy coming out of the back of the cop shop. And we're all in such a psychosis and such a delusion at this point. And all of us are fiending out for dope. So they were like, well, he said he was going to get money from his sister. I think she lives back there somewhere. So you probably caught him. That was a weird time. He was probably just going to his sister's house. No way he was just going to the cop shop to get dope money from the cops to set us up later. That's not a possibility of things that are happening right now. So we all just co-signed our own bullshit and just were like, yep, totally still going to go through with this. So we got in the car with this guy and went on a dope run. And it was a night of nonsense, a whole night of ridiculousness. I was left outside in the cold forever. And we walked a long ways and then hung out with some really shady people in a really shitty hotel. Ended up getting the drugs and heading back to town. And I mean, it's the next morning by the time we're heading back. Obviously, drug runs take forever because drug addicts take forever to do nothing. So we were coming back to town, and there in front of us is a squad car sitting in a spot where a squad car never sits. And I was like, oh man, no way that everything I thought was going to happen is actually happening. Yep, knew it. And before we even went past the cop, he already started rolling, already put her in drive and started getting ready to pull us over. I was like, yep, he's coming for us. Pulls us over. It was a whole thing. And the second squad pulls up. When the second squad pulls up, you're in trouble, right? So second squad pulled up. We're in trouble. A detective comes up and talks to me first he came up and asked if anybody in the car has had probation, got licenses from everybody, identification, asked if anybody was on probation or parole. I was on probation or parole at the time. I was on probation, but I decided I'm just not going to tell them, and they won't know. So I didn't tell him. So then he went back and ran all our names on the computer that he has in his car that's going to tell him that I'm on probation. And he comes back over very annoyed at this point that I just lied to him, and he pulls me out of the car to talk to me. It's my car. So he pulls me out to talk to me. Tells me, asked me why I lied to him. I told him it was because I didn't want my friends to know I was on probation, blah, 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 blah. We go through the rigmarole, the back and forth with him. He asked me if there's anything in the car that he needs to know about. I told him, of course not. No, there's nothing. And he's like, well, can I search the vehicle? And I was like, do I have to say yes? And he's like, well, no, you don't have to say yes. You have the rights and blah, 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 blah. So I said, well, I'm going to express my rights as an American. And I'm going to tell you, no, you can't search my vehicle. I just want to get home. And he's like, all right, fair enough, blah, blah, blah. Shakes my hand and we shake hands on it. And then as he's like, all right, have a good night. And I'm turning around and I'm thinking, wow, I just got away with this. No way. He's letting me get back in the car. And right when I go to grab the door handle, he goes, Matt, one more thing. And I was like, oh no. So I turn back around, I come over to talk to him. He's like, just so you know, you're on probation, so we don't actually need your permission to search the vehicle. We got permission from your probation officer to search the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and do that search. Great. Great. Get right into it. Go right ahead. So they search the vehicle, they find the meth. And if, just so you know, if you're ever involved in a meth bust and nobody admits to it, you don't get away with it because they didn't know whose it was. Everybody gets the charge. Okay. So because nobody would say it was theirs, everybody in the vehicle got charged with possession of methamphetamine. They found my pot and my pipe, obviously, on me. So I got charged with possession of THC and possession of paraphernalia and possession of methamphetamine. When I went to court for that, the judge was very much, other than, marijuana, he obviously, he didn't really care much about marijuana, but the methamphetamine is a bigger charge. That's, you're getting involved in crime and, drugs at that point. But I had a pretty good record up until that point, other than some pot and some parking tickets, speeding tickets, stuff like that. I was a pretty good kid my whole life. So this judge gave me the benefit of the doubt in this case. He put me on he gave me probation for the pot pipe and for the pot, and he gave me a deferred prosecution for the meth charge, which means as long as you don't get in trouble for a certain period of time, which he decided was 3 years, if you don't get in trouble for 3 years, and in this case, he even added a stipulation that as long as you don't get another felony for the next 3 years, that felony will be expunged. That meth charge will be expunged. It won't be on your record. It'll go away. Bye-bye. As long as you don't get another felony. If you get a parking ticket, misdemeanor, something like that, it's not going to mess with your deferred prosecution. But if you get another felony, you're going down. Well, old meth brain up here, I just couldn't stay out of trouble. I just couldn't get enough of it. So just under 3 years later, just under 3 years later, and this guy right here, Mr. Dope Brain there, Mr. Can't take a frickin' clear photograph to save his life, Mr. Eyes sunk in his head, pupils the size of quarters. This guy right here couldn't quit messing around with drugs. I ended up in some pretty deep water. It's a long story here, so bear with me and kind of we'll finagle through this web that I had weaved. We'll finagle our ways through this. So I'm hanging out with some friends. I'm on one hell of a bender. I don't know. I know that I just missed Christmas before this. This was February. We're coming into February 2017. I'm just about to go down and just about to finally get my life straightened up, or start straightening my life up anyways. I had just missed Christmas before that. I'm continuously gone, feeding my dad a line of garbage. I don't know how he believed me. I think it's just because he loved me that much and he didn't want to believe the truth, because 2014, I just got busted with meth. Well, now I'm telling dad this whole time. I'm telling him, no, I'm working on it, dad. I'm doing good. I'm clean. Trying to get a job, blah, blah, blah. Staying with him this whole time as well. But just feeding him a line of bullshit the whole time and trying to keep him pacified just so I can continue living at his house and sponging off of him, more or less. Now 2017 comes around. I'm out with some friends. We're out high as kites. And February 3rd, 2017, we're on the way back to my dad's house. And you come over a corner, and then it's a little straightaway there. And then when the trees clear, you can see my dad's house. Here, I'll show you another picture of it. But as the trees clear, you come around and there's my dad's house right there. Here's a newer picture. You can see the driveway in that one. So we come up, and right here on this picture, right in that driveway, there's 3 or 4 squad cars stacked right there in dad's driveway. And I'm like, oh no, like it's over. And dude's slowing down. The guy driving the car is slowing down. He's getting ready to pull into my dad's driveway. And I'm like, don't pull in here. What are you doing? And he's like, I got to pull in now. Like, we're going 5 miles an hour on the highway here. I got to pull in. And I'm like, don't pull in. Just go, just go, just go. And I talked him into fricking just going, man. So he turned his blinker off and hit the gas. Well, the cops seen this, obviously. There's enough of them there. It's like a hornet's nest at my dad's house. They see this car pull up, slow way down with the blinker on, and then brrr, hit the gas. So of course, I don't know if they followed us back to town or if they just knew who it was and knew where we were going. It's a small town area, so they knew where we were going, you know. So we go back to his house, flying as fast as we can, get back there. I run inside to go hide. I go down in the basement. I'm going to hide in his basement. I grab the door handle, and the door handle comes off in my hand. Like seriously, like a scene out of a movie. The door handle for that basement came off in my hand, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do? And he's like, hide in my room. So I quick run into his bedroom, and I do the little kid thing. I hide under the blankets on the bed. I jump onto his bed and I hide under the blankets and throw the blankets over my head. So the cops come beating on the door. My buddy lets them in the house because he's another genius. We're really good criminals, you guys. We're really good at being criminals. So he lets the police in. They're like, we're looking for Matt Jablonski. We know he's in here. He's like, no, he's not here. You can come in and look around. Go ahead. So he invites the police in. The police come in. He's got 2 big dogs. The dogs are barking. 2 little kids. The kids are screaming. It's chaos in his living room, right? And his wife is like, I'm going to put the baby down. She doesn't need to be out here for all this. So she picks up the baby. Well, when the cops are in your house, they don't just allow you to just walk off into another room. They go and look and watch you and see what you're doing. So you don't go in there and grab a gun and come out guns blazing or something, you know. So they watch her. She brings the baby into the room where I am. Now she opens the door. The cop is behind her, watching her every move. My dumbass under the blankets, I get curious. I hear all these people coming in the room. So I want to see what's going on. So I pull the blankets down and I look, and there's a cop standing right there, and he shines the flashlight right in my face. And he goes, well, what do we have here? And I instantly throw the covers back over my head and go back under the blankets. So now it gets even worse. It gets so much worse. Now he's got his gun out. Now he's screaming and hollering, telling me to come out. The dogs are freaked. Everything's just insane now. He grabs me by the boots and just yanks me out, because another thing that was happening is I was so into a psychosis at this point that I thought I had a meth pipe and a bag of meth in my hand. I didn't. You guys, I had nothing. I had nothing in my hands. But a reason why I was so reluctant when he was pulling his gun and yelling, come out of there, get out of there, get out of there. The reason I didn't come back out is because I was like, oh no, I got a meth pipe in my hand. No, I didn't. I did not. So he grabs me by the boots, yanks me out from the bed, throws me on the floor, whips me over, puts the cuffs on me, hauls me out to the car. As he's putting me in the car, I'm trying to think, like, what did I do? What did I do? And all I can think is that I missed a lot of probation while I was in my active addiction. I think I was on probation for like 2 years, little over 2 years. And in that 2 years, I missed over 13 probation visits. So I was constantly getting warrants put out for my arrest for missing probation. So that's all that I could come up with. So he takes me out to the car. He puts me in the back seat and he says, you know what this is about? And I said, yeah, I missed probation again. And he goes, not exactly, and slammed the door. And when that door shut and it was just me left in the back seat of this car, and now I know that it's not about probation, but I don't know what it's about. And this is 13 years into a meth addiction, and I was a thief. I was a criminal. Like I'd done a lot of bad stuff. So the question is now, what did they find? Who did they talk to? What are they going to charge me with here? He takes me to jail. I sit the night in jail. And the next day, a detective comes in to talk to me. And hopefully he's going to clear some things up. He brings me down to a interrogation room. And he's like, Matt, did you know that there's been some cabin robberies in your area? And I didn't know that, actually. I had no idea. There was always cabin robberies in the Northwoods, but I didn't know specifically that there was like a lot going on. And I was like, no, I didn't know about that. And he says, yeah, one of the cabins that got robbed is your good buddies. And I was like, oh. And he goes, yeah, they said that you probably did it. And Now, me and this buddy, we've been friends since kindergarten. Been friends, thick as thieves we were. We've been through the ringer together. We were in active addiction together. But at this time, me and him we're not on good terms. Like, the meth addiction has definitely taken hold on both of us. We don't like each other very much at all at this point. So the idea that he pointed the finger on me, to me, of course, victim mentality. I was like, oh, he's narking me out, son of a biscuit, blah, 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 blah. I didn't do it. But later on, of course, that set in. The fact that I didn't actually do that, but that, friends of mine who'd known me since kindergarten, that I had gotten so bad that when their cabin was robbed, they thought it was probably me. Like, that was a big wake-up call for me later on. But in that moment, it was just I was very resentful towards them and couldn't believe that they told the cops it was me. It wasn't me. How dare they do this to me? Oh, woe is me, But anyways, so he tells me that. They didn't end up charging me with that because they found who actually did it. It wasn't me. It was a 15-year-old girl, which, as I've said in the past, is super upsetting that I'm so small that my feet are the same size as a 15-year-old girl, because that's why they thought it was me. It's because the boot prints that were found outside of his cabin matched my boot prints. That's bad. That's bad. Not only is that bad that a 15-year-old girl is involved in a criminal lifestyle of breaking into cabins and stealing guns, that's also bad that my feet are so small that I'm getting implicated in crimes that I didn't commit by 15-year-old girls with my tiny little feet. But anyway, they didn't get me on that gun. But in their investigation to that gun, they found a gun that I had stolen. In the pursuit of that weapon, they found another one. My meth dealer had gone to jail. While he was in jail, everyone in a Tri-County area was in this dude's house stealing stuff. Everybody was in there stealing stuff, myself included. I stole a shotgun from him, and I sold that shotgun, and then I used the money to buy more meth from him when he got out of jail. Hey, I was a businessman, and I was doing business. Okay. The twisted web we weave, I tell you. So yeah, they found that gun. So now I was facing felony theft and a felony because the person I sold the gun to was a felon. So now I'm getting hit with a felony for stealing the gun and a felony for who I sold it to. So with those two new felony charges, and we're still within my deferred prosecution, now I'm getting charged with felony theft, furnishing a firearm to a felon, and possession of methamphetamine. And I'm being revoked off of my probation, which I was on probation, as you guys remember, for THC and paraphernalia. So I go to see the judge to get revocated. And this is the same judge who back in 2014 cut me some slack and thought I was a pretty good kid and that I needed a break and stuff like that. And now here I am getting sentenced on that and new charges. And now I'm picked up a charge with a firearm, which judges are not very kind to people who are picking up charges with firearms, especially when you sell them to a felon, because that, very luckily that all got caught, because that could have turned really bad for people if that had not gone, if I hadn't got caught and that gun hadn't been found, who knows where we would be today, So I'm very thankful that everything happened the way that it happened. But so this judge, this time I come in for my revocation and he goes over a laundry list of things. He goes over the charges that I had back then, the charges that I just got now. He looks at my probation. He looks at my work history, which is null. I'm not working at all. I'm a terrible drug addict at this point. And he goes over the fact that in the past 2 years of probation, I've missed 13 visits. Like over half of my visits had to be I missed them, and then I had all this time that I've been in and out of jail, for continuously failing piss tests and missing probation and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm in and out of jail for the last decade here. And he says, Mr. Jablonski, normally in a revocation case, I like to weigh the good with the bad. But in your case, sir, there simply is no good. And that hit me. Hearing that judge say that, man, really hit me in the heart. Because I'd always been a good kid. I'd always been a good guy. Always tried my best to be a good guy. But I had gotten so bad and let this get so far out of control that here a judge can't see any good in my case. And he decided that if ever there was a revocation case where the max penalty should be imposed and be ran concurrent, it's this one. So he hit me with the full extent, which wasn't, a bunch of years or anything, but THC, the max penalty was 6 months in jail. The paraphernalia charge, max was 30 days. So total of 7 months there that he could put me away for, because those new charges I had picked up, if you know anything about the judicial system, it takes like a year before you get charged for the actual crimes. From the time you commit the crime, about a year later, you usually end up getting charged and sentences through all the court proceedings. So he's not charging me for the meth charge and all that stuff right now. He's just charging me for the revocation. So max penalty was 7 months, and he hit me with the full 7 months. I had racked up so much time sat because when you go to jail on a probation hold, or when you pick up a charge and you go to jail, that time you sit in jail isn't technically going towards a crime. So it just gets banked. So it gives you what's called time sat. So over the past 2 years of probation, not only had I missed 13 visits, but I'd had 4 months worth of time sat racked up on weekends and weeks that my probation officer had put me in jail for failed piss tests or for new charges or for whatever. I had racked up 4 months of time in a 2-year span, 4 months of my life that I had spent behind bars on weekends and stuff. And that was another kind of a wake-up call, kind of a realization of, wow, like 4 months of my life that I missed out on from what the lifestyle that I'm living, So he charged me with the 7 months, gave me the 4 months time sat. So I ended up with about 97 days that I had to sit in jail. In those 97 days, a lot of things happened that woke me up. Normally when I went to jail, my dad would come visit me like every Sunday. He would show up and visit me. This time he did, but one Sunday I got woke up and it wasn't my dad, it was my mom. And my mom had come to see me in that orange jumpsuit. And my mom couldn't even think of what to say. We kind of just sat there in silence, and it was a very weird conversation. She just asked me, how long you got, when you're going to get out, what are you going to do? And she told me, I'm not going to lecture you because what you're doing is wrong, and there's nothing I can say, so, and that I think really went a long way, because if my mom had come in there and yelled at me and told me, what are you doing? Look, you're making a disgrace of yourself. You know better than this, blah, 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 blah. If she would have yelled at me, I could have spun it on her, and I could have played the victim card, and I could have been like, oh, whatever, Mom, I'm in jail and you're going to come in here and say this crap to me. You're going to kick me while I'm down, blah, 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 blah. And I could have put it back on her, but she didn't give me that ability. She took that ability away by just being so broken about this situation. And was a huge wake-up call for me. While I was in there, the same thing that I did to my drug dealer when he went to jail and we all went to his house and stole all his stuff, same thing happened to me. While I was in jail, all my friends and everybody went to my dad's house, told him they left some stuff in my room or whatever. And my dad was like, oh yeah, go ahead and go grab it, because he's an honest guy and he doesn't, he's just a good guy. So he thought they were being honest too. My dad always kind of had that big heart where he gave you honesty. So he just blindly expected you to give him honesty back, And so my friends would tell him, yeah, I left something in Matt's room or whatever. And they'd go in there with literal duffel bags and just steal my stuff. I didn't have a lot because I was a meth head for 13 years. You don't accumulate a lot of things, but I had a lot of stuff. I had like 500 flashlights, old fucking old cords to hook up a PlayStation 1, you know, the stuff that a meth addict has. A bunch of stupid stuff. But they stole all of that. And my girlfriend at the time had been cheating on me, of course, while I was locked away, because you don't lose your girl, you just lose your turn. Yeah, anyway, so all of that stuff was going on while I was in jail. And I had all these wake-up calls. Another huge one. This is one that I cannot stress enough as a huge wake-up call for me, was the one day they come in and they call for NA and AA. And my cellmate, who I was in like a dormitory style jail cell, so it was like 8 guys, but we had like low walls blocking off our bunks, and there was 2 bunks in each section. So it was me and this other guy in this one section. And he was another full-blown meth addict, straight up, still addicted, couldn't wait to get out so he could go back to using, same as me. He stood up to go to NA and AA when they came in and called for it. And he started walking towards the door, and I was like, "You go to NA?" And he was like, "Dude, it gets me out of the cell for an hour, and you get to see other people in the jail, and they let you bring a book sometimes. And the guy who runs it, we just sit in there, we talk about drugs. Like, he's a pretty cool guy." And I was like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I could go for that. I didn't know they were planting seeds in those meetings. All right. I had no idea about all the seed planting that was going on in those meetings. Although I did not stick with NA and AA, those NA meetings in jail were a lifesaver. That was like my first time I was ever exposed to someone who got out of addiction and made it work, who got into recovery and actually stayed in recovery. Because all the examples I had ever seen was anybody that I'd ever seen try to get clean, they ended up coming back in active addiction, you know, because when you're in an active addiction, you get kind of tunnel vision. You don't see you don't see the whole perspective at all. And all you see, everyone around you is using drugs. So you fall into this mindset that everybody does drugs. Like, no, not everybody does drugs. I can tell you that. And not everybody that stops doing drugs actually, ends up screwing up. But when you're in an active addiction, anybody of your friends that tries recovery, either they end up screwing up and back in with you, or you never see them again and you don't even know that they actually made it work, So I had this idea that nobody makes it out of this. This is a death sentence. You're a meth addict now, you don't come back from this. So seeing Charlie, the guy who ran those meetings, and seeing that he made this work. He was in recovery now. And he was a guy who, when I met Charlie, I still hadn't fully admitted how bad of an addict I had become. I still hadn't fully admitted my depravity to myself. So when I met Charlie and he told his story of addiction, in my mind, he was worse than me. I don't like to compare addictions, but at that time I still did. And at that time, hearing Charlie's story and looking back now, I mean, if I did compare addictions, I was either on the same level or I was worse than Charlie, honestly. But back then I still was lying to myself a lot. So when I heard his story, I was like, wow, here's a guy who's worse than me and he made it out and he looks happy, So the first question I asked him, that was the first meeting I ever went to, first time hearing anything like this, and he asked if anybody had any questions. I raised my hand right away. I was like, how do you forgive yourself for all the bad shit you've done? Because that was like my biggest hurdle, was how am I going to forgive myself? Because I'd done a lot of bad shit, And he said, by receiving forgiveness from others, you'll begin to forgive yourself. And that was something that I could put into practice. That was real. That was tangible. That was an action I could do to get an outcome. Finally, somebody explained it out a little bit and it made sense to me. And I'm very thankful that he told me that, because that's something that I put into practice in my life. And it really did help me forgive myself by earning forgiveness from others and receiving the forgiveness, and that step of making the amends. That was huge, because if the victim of your crime or of your bad act, whatever it was, if the victim, the person that you hurt, can say, it's okay, I forgive you, then how can you feel bad about it? If the person who is affected by it is no longer holding that against you, then you can maybe let go of the hatred for yourself for it. So that made sense to me, and it really does work. So that's a huge shout out to making amends, man, because that is really pivotal. So I got out of jail on May 10th, 2017. And before I left, I talked to Charlie, told him I was getting out and stuff, went to that last meeting. And he said, when you get out, he said, I used to go to a prison and do NA classes in prison. And when you got out of the prison, if you went to the left, there was a bar up the street. And if you went to the right, there was an old church and they did NA meetings in the basement. He said, so I used to tell people when they were getting out of prison, go right in every sense of the word. When you get out of here, go right. And that stuck with me, obviously. Here we are 6 years later, and I'm still saying that to people. So go right in every sense of the word, go right. So when I got out, I had an opportunity to go back to that old lifestyle. I got out, and all the things that I talked about that, were happening while I was in there, everybody stealing my stuff and my girl being with somebody else and all that stuff, all of it became real when I stepped out of those doors and stepped back into my life and realized it. Came back home with 97 days of not using drugs, 97 days locked in a cell, 97 days of really looking at myself and what I had become. And I didn't want to go back to the old me. When I got back to my dad's house and seen that all my stuff was gone and, talked to my girl, and she admitted to me that she was seeing some other dude. And every time I'd gone to jail, my buddy Ryan had always sent me a message. He sent me a message every time. And when I would get out, I would have a message either on a text or on Facebook from Ryan saying, dude, come down here to Whitewater, try it out, come down here, get away from that life, come down here. And I always gave him some excuse. No, I got a new job, or no, I got a new girlfriend, or no, I got to be here for my dad, or whatever. But the real underneath it all, I knew that if I moved in with Ryan, or if I came down here, that I wouldn't be able to do meth anymore. I knew that. So that was the real reason why I always made up some excuse, But this time, having seen everything I've seen and having realized everything I'd realized, when I got out, I had that same message from Ryan telling me, hey man, this time he worded it a little different though. This time he said, why don't you come down here for a week? Come down here for a week and try it out. Brianna loves you. I love you. Just come down here and stay on our couch and try and find a job. If it works out, awesome. If it doesn't, for any reason it doesn't work, I will take you back home. No harm, no foul, is what he said. And in the past, he'd always told me, move down here, come stay down here, things like that. And my active addiction, instant gratification centered brain would never allow me to take giant leaps like that. It just wasn't in my wheelhouse to grasp onto things like that. So when he worded as that, try it out for a week. If it doesn't work out, I'll take you back home. My brain can do that. My brain is okay with that. So this time I was like, you know what? I said, you know how much I like change. And then in parentheses, I said, I hate it, which is really ironic that nowadays the name of my page is The Point of Change. But when I messaged Ryan back, I still remember that I said, you know how much I like change, in parentheses, I hate it. But then I said, but I'm thinking about taking you up on that. And yeah, it was later that evening when everything actually, now I knew all that stuff was true, but it didn't really fully hit me. Later on, all of that stuff that I'd realized really started to hit me. And I wanted to get high really badly. And went and grabbed my phone. And instead of calling the dope man or messaging the dope man, I messaged Ryan. In that moment, some miracle happened, because that was one of those pivotal moments where I could have threw this whole thing in the garbage can in that second. But something told me, message Ryan and don't back out on him this time. Because there had been another time where I messaged Ryan and I told him, come get me. And he was like, I'm coming to get you. And then like 2 hours later, I messaged him back and I told him, never mind, don't do it. And he was like, no, dude, you got to come with me. You got to come with me. And I was like, no, if you come here, I won't be here. Turn around, go home. And he was super disappointed, but he turned around and he went back home. This time something told me, message Ryan and don't back out on him. So I did. I messaged Ryan and I told him, man, you got to come get me, man. I'm freaking out. I'm going to get high. I know I am. I need you to help me, man. I need help. And he was like, give me 5 minutes. And about 5 minutes later, he called me up and he was like, dude, I'm coming to get you. I'm taking the rest of the day off work. I'm going to jump in the car right now. I'm coming to get you. He said, can your dad bring you halfway and meet me? And I did not want to ask Dad for anything because, here I'd been lying to Dad for years, telling him I was getting clean and I wasn't. And now he knows that, and he knows I'm a liar. He knows I've been stealing from him. He knows all this. I don't want to ask him for nothing. But I had something in me said, hey, if we're going to make this work, we got to start asking for help, So I turned to Dad and I said, Dad, Ryan wants me to try it out down there for a week. You think you could give me a ride down there or halfway, And Dad was like happier than I'd seen him in years. I mean, my dad was not in, here's a picture of my dad again. My dad was not in good shape by any means. He's a big guy, but he jumped out of his chair. That old man jumped up so freaking happy. Yeah, I can give you a ride. Hell yeah. Is he leaving now? Do we got to go now? Do we got time? Go get your clothes, start packing right now. Go get clothes ready. I'll get you some food. And he threw together a box of food for me that was so random, dude. There was like a half a box of Rice Krispies, a can of tuna fish, some yellow rice, like the most random stuff you can imagine in that box. But he was just trying to help, and he gave me $50. He said, don't spend this on drugs. And we were on our way. And we met Ryan halfway. And I think Ryan was pretty blown away by me at that point. I mean, you guys Ryan hadn't seen me in a while. And I maybe weighed 100 and nothing. Man, I probably weighed about 100 pounds, missing teeth, eyes are sunk in. I looked like hell. And Ryan told me later on that he was really worried that night and had hard time sleeping when we got back because he was worried that I was just going to rob him and steal his truck and leave in the middle of the night. And I don't blame him for having those thoughts because I was a straight up meth addict, man. I was in the depths of it. But Ryan took a chance on me. Here I am starting to get a little bit of recovery weight back on me. As you can see, I was getting a little bloated in this picture, but there's me and Ryan at a Brewers game. My first year of recovery, moving down to Whitewater, was very weird, man. It was very, I was very much a robot. I knew what I was supposed to do, but I didn't want to do it, so my first year of recovery was really God keeping me going. Looking back, it was really God keeping me going and making things happen for me because I still very much had a self-sabotage attitude. I was still trying to screw this up so I could end up back up north messing up and doing meth again. Like when I first got down here and first gave it a try, in that first week of trying to find a job, I had decided that I was going to wow, as far as skimming over my active addiction, we sure took a long time to get this far. Anyway, I got time. I hope you guys got time. Keep the hearts coming, guys. I love you so much. Thanks for sticking with me on this. Throw some hearts up. Share this video out if you haven't yet. I appreciate everybody for joining me this afternoon. I hope this so far has been a little inspirational or let you in on some stuff that you didn't know about me or something like that. I appreciate you guys being here, but it's going to get pretty hard in a minute here. So please bear with me as we work our way through this story from here out. But when I first got down here, I got down on a Monday, and then on Wednesday, I went out looking for jobs. I decided, but in my self-sabotage brain, I decided that what I was going to do was I was going to go out and collect applications, and then I was going to bring them back to Ryan's house and not fill them out. And then I just wouldn't get a job, because then I could screw myself over and I would end up back up at Dad's house and, it wouldn't be my fault because I tried. So I was going to make it look like I was trying without actually trying. I had become a professional at that. In my active addiction, I had become a pro at looking like I was trying when I really wasn't. And I had that same attitude when I first moved down here. A lot of things from your addiction will follow you. So I came down here with the idea that I was going to screw it up and then I would go back home. On that Wednesday, I went out looking for a job. The night before, Ryan and I sat down because I had such a bad work history. And we decided that I was going to have a really hard time getting a job with a work history like that. So we decided we were going to lie, that I was going to make up a fake work history. And so we called some friends of ours from up north that worked in construction and stuff like that. And we figured out this whole fake work history that I would say I worked for this guy for this many years and this guy for this many years. And we called these guys up and told them, hey, Maddie's trying to get a job. He's going to put you down that he worked for you. If they call you, you tell them that he worked for you. Okay. And they were like, oh yeah, sure. We'll do that. Blah, blah, blah. Well, then on Wednesday, I'm going around looking for applications. And one of the first places I go to is a factory on the edge of town here. And I come in the lobby and I was like, hi, I'm here to grab an application. And she goes, oh, that's awesome. Because today we're doing walk-in interviews. If you fill out an application, you get an interview right on the spot. And I was like, all of the alarms that I'm trying to screw this up right now. Okay. So all of the alarms go off in my head that, whoa, so I'm like, I'm like, oh, that's cool, but I'm just going to take the application with me and then I'll bring it back. Hopefully I can get back here today and we'll try that. And she goes, you can't take the application with you. It's on the computer right here in our lobby. We have 3 computers set up over there. You got to fill it out here. And I was like, I don't have my information with me. I don't have my work history or anything like that with me. And she goes, don't worry about it, honey. Just fill it in. Just fill it in the best you can. We'll get you an interview. And I was like, okay. So I walk over to that computer and I was serious. I didn't have the fake crap that me and Ryan had made up. I didn't have it with me. So I sat down at that computer and all I could think of was the truth. That's all that would come into my head was my really crappy work history was all that would play. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to do it. So I filled out that application with the truth. And even when it said, are you guilty of any felonies, misdemeanors? I wrote that I had too many to list and I couldn't think of them all, and part of my self-sabotage brain was okay with this because it was like, dude, if you're trying not to get this job, best way to not get this job is to tell them who you really are because you're a piece of crap, So I was like, all right, maybe this will work. Maybe I still won't get this job. And so they gave me the interview. I went back. I still put my best foot forward because, as I said, I'm trying to make it look like I'm trying, So I went back there and looked like I was trying, and they gave me the job. I came back out. I was like, holy, I guess I got the job. And Ryan's like, oh, that's awesome, man. Cool, dude. Let's get you some work boots. Like, he bought me my work boots. He bought me a lunchbox. He bought me everything I needed to get started. Gave me a place to stay the whole time. And that's really another one of those big pivotal moments that helped me stay. I held that job the whole first year of my recovery. My first year of recovery, sometimes I look at it and I think it was stagnant time, but it really wasn't stagnant time because I really was doing some work. I kept a job. I went through AODA counseling, which is alcohol or other drug assessment counseling. I went through group therapy. I went through one-on-one therapy. I really got myself a good foundation. I got some seeds planted that they didn't take root in that first year of recovery, though. They really just were underground seeds, I was still very robotic that whole first year. Yeah, I kept a job. Yeah, I was going to probation. Yeah, I was doing counseling, but I wasn't doing those things because I really wanted to. I was doing those things because I knew that that's what normal people do. That's what I have to do. So I was very much in autopilot, just doing the damn thing, but just going through the motions, so to speak, and in a lot of ways, I was still planning a relapse. I was still looking for an excuse to go back out in a lot of ways, but God protected me from that. There actually was one time at work at that job that there was a guy working on the line who was, I could tell he was a drug addict. And he started talking about all the drugs he had and stuff. And I actually asked him if he could get meth. And he was like, yeah, I think I can, man. That's not real popular around down here, though, but I think I could get it. And he got fired like the next day. I never seen that guy again after that. So it was a lot of, like I say, it was a lot of God working behind the scenes to keep me straight and narrow, because this guy right here was trying to screw it up. I was trying my damnedest to screw it up, but God intervened at a lot of perfect, crucial moments to keep me walking the line. Here's where it gets kind of tough. So I moved down here to Whitewater on May 10th, 2017, or May 11th. I'm not sure. I think I might have stayed one night up north. That's a foggy memory from 6 years ago, so I'm not totally sure. But I moved down here right around May 10th. Coming into May 2018, 1 year later, just over my 1 year mark, I just graduated out of my AODA counseling, completed that, and I got a call from my older brother, Mick. My dad hadn't been doing so well. He was in and out of the hospital a lot, and he finally wound himself in the hospital and hadn't been home in quite a while. And we were all keeping praying for him, but me, I'm down here, I'm 4.5 hours away from it all, so I was kind of unplugged from it. So I was a little distant from the whole situation, and I was in denial on it. I was very much like, Dad's okay. You're all making a big deal out of nothing. It's going to be okay. Yeah, he's been in the hospital for a minute, but like, he's going to be good. He's going to pull through this. And you guys are all just a bunch of worrywarts up there. You know, Dad's tough. He's going to make it back home. And then I got a call from my oldest brother, Mick, I have a deep respect for him. He's the oldest brother. You know, he's always been a straight shooter. He don't exaggerate. He don't blow things out of proportion. He's not one to run and cry wolf. And Mick called me and he said, Matt, you need to come see Dad. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming to see him in a couple weeks, man. Like, I got a 3-day weekend coming up at work. I'm gonna be there, like, just a couple weeks. And he was like, Matt, Dad doesn't have 2 weeks. And everything kind of became real. Everything became really real right then. So I was like, yeah, I will be there. I'll take some time off of work and I will be there, man. Don't worry. So I called into work, and thanks, Michael. Appreciate you, man. I called into work and I set up to go up north and see my dad. And it had been a while since I'd been up north. And yeah, he was, he was getting up there in years, and Dad had a lot of mobility issues and stuff. But the last time I was up, he was doing good. He was still walking around his house. He was still making food for himself. He was still, no unhealthier than he ever was. He was a smoker and an over-the-road trucker for 35 years. So Dad was not in good health for years, but he still was. Dad always was a good-looking guy. He might not have took the best care of himself, but he, was in fairly decent health. And so when I went up to see my dad, I was expecting to see this guy. I was really expecting to get there and to see this guy. But when I got there, I saw this guy. And seeing him in that bed like that, I wasn't ready for that. It all suddenly made sense. And so before I got there, we had talked about taking Dad home and having a family get together with him. But while I was on my way up, I didn't have a license, but I had a car. So I broke the law and drove without a license up there because I had to go see my dad. And we were planning on bringing him back to his house and having a family get together with him. But while I was on my way up, Dad had gotten pretty grumpy, pretty upset, and told everybody to cancel it. He said, I'm just going to die here. I'm not going home. I don't want to go home unless I can stay home, he said. And when I got there and I walked in the room and he lit up. He lit up. And he said, and he was, hi, Matthew, how you doing, man? And he was pretty short of breath, you know, as you could tell from that picture, but he was super happy to see me. And he had just gotten done. I guess before I walked in that door, he had just gotten done telling my brother Troy, never mind, I'm just going to die here. Like, no, we're not going back to the house. And I come in and he cheers up a little bit and starts talking. And he turns to Troy and he goes, weren't we talking about going home? Troy's about in tears because here he's been listening to Dad talk about how he's just going to die there, you know. And now all of a sudden Dad's all happy. Oh, weren't we just saying we were going to go home? Let's go home. I want to go home. So Troy says, well, yeah, Dad, I guess we can go home if you want to go home. You know, he says, yeah, we'll figure it out. And we'll go back to the house tomorrow, you know. And Dad says, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I think that'd be good. Go back to the house, you know. And so that night we all got together, me and my brothers, and we tried to figure this out. We tried to figure out how we were going to get Dad home because he was in pretty rough shape. And so we called a few different assisted living places that had one of them vans that they could, you know, that had the door that opens and the platform that comes out and all that stuff. And we finally found one who was willing to do it. We found one guy who said he was willing to do it. But after talking to the people at the nursing home, that guy too decided that it wasn't good. It wasn't that if we wanted to do it on our own, if we had the stuff to do it, we could. He still didn't advise us to do it, but he said he professionally couldn't take that risk of moving him. So we were back to square zero, I guess, as far as bringing Dad home. And the next day when we got there to see, we kind of decided amongst us, we said, you know what, screw it. We're 5 young strapping men. Like, we'll grab him. We'll just pick him up under the arms and we'll carry him out and we'll put him in the damn truck ourselves and we'll bring him home if that's what he wants. Well, we got there the next day and he wasn't talking anymore. He was barely breathing. So we decided we were just going to have the family get together right there with him instead of trying to move him because we just felt like it wasn't going to be safe. So we called together all the family and everybody came, and it was one of the saddest days of my life. Dad couldn't talk anymore. And still to this day, I don't mean to get too sad about it, but I kicked myself in the ass for not getting him a marker board or something so he could have wrote something down for us. Nobody thought of that. None of us thought of that. Because he was trying to talk to people the whole day and nobody could understand what he was saying. He was so out of breath and so shallow breathing and everything, and he just couldn't. His COPD was really taking him down. He had very low lung capacity, so he didn't have enough pressure to even get words out of his mouth. And we couldn't understand him. I still kicked myself in the butt for not bringing him a marker board or something to write with so he could have said something. But can't dwell on the past, you know. That's the way it happened is the way it happened. But we had our family get together, and the next day I had to leave to head back to Whitewater. My job at the time, I was second shift, and I worked at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I figured I had to leave by like 10 at the latest to get back home to still make it to work. And the next morning I woke up really early. I woke up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and all I could think was, your dad's still alive. Go see dad. Go see dad. Go see dad. Go see dad. So I waited a little while because I wanted my brother, who was there too, I wanted him to wake up so he could maybe come with me. But I waited a while. I waited a couple hours and he didn't wake up. So I went and knocked on his door and I told him, I said, hey man, I'm going to head out. But I'm going to go see dad first. And he just said, yeah, go. He said, go ahead. So I'm going to go over there later this afternoon and see him. But yeah, you should probably go see him. And I was like, all right, cool. So I went over to see my dad. And when I got there, the nurses and his girlfriend were there. And they told me that he'd gotten even worse overnight. That he was no longer attempting to talk. And he was just, that it was time. And so I went in and I took my time to talk to my dad, and I told him that I loved him, and I told him thank you for everything that he'd done for me, and I apologized to him for my active addiction, and told him that it wasn't his fault, that this was my doing, and that he did a really good job. And I said, Dad, you had 5 boys, and they all grew up except for me. He said, but I'm grown up now, Dad. I did it. I'm over a year clean. I got my AODA graduated. I'm doing it. I said, if you need to go, you go. And right when I said that, he started squeezing my hand really tight. And I said, are you going right now? And he did. And he did. He let go of my hand. He breathed out his last breath right there. And I held his hand for a second longer, and then I went out in the hallway because a few of my other brothers were out there. I went out in the hallway and I was going to tell him, but all I could do was just tears just flowing. And I just kind of flopped my arm like this towards him, and then I fell into the wall. And my brothers came over and picked me up and ran in the room, and he was gone, and but his death really pushed me forward. How he passed, the way he passed away, and it really gave a reason. That in that moment, I seen why it all had to happen. It was like I got a glimpse of God's plan, and I seen, because we're almost to the day a year since I moved away. Just graduated my AODA class days before this. Had a vehicle and was actually able to be present-minded, body and soul, in order to know that I needed to be there and to put all things to the side and be there for my dad and be able to truthfully and honestly tell him that I got this, was huge. That's huge. And that is what really sparked in me the want to help other people, be okay and get to that point where you're okay, so that your parents or your loved ones or whatever, they know that you got this and they can do whatever it is that they need to do, whether it be passing on, or it be just moving away, or it be doing whatever they need to do, because they don't have to be that safety net for their child anymore, and I wanted to help more people get to that point where they don't need that safety net anymore. And but there was a lot more that needed to happen in order for me to get to the point where I was ready to do that. But that was what sparked it. That was what made recovery real, was my dad passing away, is what really made me wake up. That's when the switch flipped. That was when I went from, I'm doing this, because I think this is what normal people should do, to I'm doing this. I'm really doing this, and I'm going to make this really real. I'm going to make this my life. That's what made recovery really real for me, was my dad passing away. His life ended and my life began. And I can't thank him enough for the gift of allowing me to be there as he passed away. That was, talk about a gift right there. That was crucial for my life. His sunset was my sunrise. Now it still gets kind of convoluted from here, but it gets a lot better from here. So let's all take a sigh of relief after that. Take a breath, let it out, stretch the arms a little bit. That's heavy stuff, you know? And my deepest condolences to anybody out there that's watching this that has gone through that and felt the loss that I went through and has lost somebody in your recovery that was really crucial to your recovery, a support system member of any sort. My heart goes out to you. I know what you're going through, and you can use that to drive you forward. Don't let it bring you down. Don't let it be something that made you stumble, because they wouldn't want that. They're watching us now, so they don't want us stumbling for any reason, and especially not because of something they did. You know, not even their passing would they want that to be something that caused you to stumble. So use it to drive you forward. After my dad passed away and we had his funeral, it ended up working out to where I was able to take the work week off. Obviously, I got FMLA leave, so I could come be with my family and lay my father to rest. And then when I left, heading back home, and I got pulled over. That's a fun sight to see, isn't it? Does that stir up any emotions in anybody out there, seeing those lights in a mirror like that? Yeah, I had to give it to you. Driving home from my dad's funeral, I get pulled over. I'm on probation. I had a cracked windshield. I was driving without a license. Obviously, I've used cannabis in my recovery. It's been medication, recreation, celebration kind of thing, but it's been a very helpful thing for my mental illness and for my addiction. So I had a marijuana pipe in the car. Didn't have any marijuana on me, but I did have my pipe in the center console. So even though cannabis helps me in my recovery and is a medication for me, it's still illegal, and it doesn't look good on paper. And the world is getting more progressive towards cannabis as a medicine and towards something that helps people with their addictions. But the mindset is still there that it's a drug. And on paper, it looks like you've relapsed. And to the most of the world, it looks like you've relapsed when they see cannabis in your life, right? Well, this cop that pulled me over was not having anything that I had to say that day. He didn't care that my dad had just passed away. He didn't care that I was coming home from his funeral. He didn't care that cannabis helps me in my recovery. In fact, he found a bottle of wine that my mom had given me from my dad's funeral. She gave all of us boys a bottle of homemade wine at my dad's funeral. He found that in the back seat, and he came over to me and he goes, "What's this?" And I was like, "It's a bottle of wine my mom gave me at my dad's funeral." And he goes, "You're on probation. You can't have this." And he took it over, grabbed a bag out of the back end of his car, wrapped that bottle in a bag, smashed it on the side of the road in front of my car. Or no, I was in the back seat in handcuffs already at this point. He went and took it and smashed it on the side of the road and dumped it out and threw it in a box full of stuff and then threw it in the back seat by my feet. He wasn't having nothing. That cop was just willing to run me through the ringer, man. I was a ball of tears in the back seat. So I went to jail on a probation hold, and I go to probation in a county that's full of methamphetamine. And I'm just over a year off of meth. My dad has just passed away. I'm now going back to jail, which is something that I never wanted to have happen again in my recovery. So yeah, I was not doing very well. They brought me into the jail, sat the night in the holding cell, and then the next morning they moved me into general population. I'm sitting there waiting on transport because I'm on probation down here in Whitewater, but I'm now in jail up in Wausau. So I'm waiting on a transport to bring me down, which if you've ever waited on a transport before, paperwork's got to be filed by your probation officer. It has to go through her supervisor. It has to be sent over to where you are. Everything's got to be stamped and re-stamped and all this. So it can take a long time. Like, government works very slow. We all know that. It can take a long time to get your transfer through. So, well, I had decided when I got in there, I mean, as soon as I come in, I'm in a cell full of people that are active addicts that are still actively using methamphetamine. And they're talking about it all day long. That's all I heard in that cell was people talking about using. The one guy in the bunk underneath me was literally, he was like, yeah, man, every time I shoot up, I go over this spot right here, man. This is the spot I use. You could throw a dart from across the room and hit me in this spot, bro. Like I could get high every time, blah, 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 blah. And they're talking about, it was the worst conversations you can imagine. So I decided that I'm just going to stay in my bunk. I'm going to put my blankets over my head. I'm going to get up for food, but I'm going to stay in this bunk. I'm not talking to these guys. I'm a year clean, and my dad just died. I'm staying in this bunk, right? Well, later that evening, I hear a voice. And I'm already starting to think, like, you don't know how long you're going to be here. You can't stay here in this bunk the whole time. Like, it's just not feasibly possible for you to stay here. You're a social butterfly. You're going to have to talk to some people. And then that evening, this isn't a picture of the actual guys, but it's pretty close. That evening, I heard a voice over top of the other voices, somebody being really positive and reading the word of the Bible and getting into it, you know? And I wake up and I look over and I see something like this. I see a bunch of guys in the jail are over around this table, and they're all hands around each other praying and doing a Bible study right there in the jail cell. And I was not a believer. At this point, I still called Jesus the spaghetti monster. I was like, yeah, I'm not into that, but I need to get out of this bed. And I'm not going to talk to all these guys who are talking about meth. And I don't believe in this Jesus stuff, but at least they're being positive. They're talking about faith. They're talking about saving grace. They're talking about doing better. They're talking about, positivity and everlasting love and all this stuff. So I'm like, all right, if I'm going to be here and I'm going to talk to people, I'm going to go talk to those guys. So I went over and I joined in on their Bible study, and I introduced myself, and they asked me, so what brings you here, Matt? And I just spilled the beans. I just told them my story, and they were hanging on my every word. They were right into it. Some of them guys were drug addicts, and they're asking me how I did, what got you clean and what made you do this and what made you do that. Up until this point, other than the NA I had been to in my original jail sentence, I hadn't shared about my recovery. I was pretty locked down about the fact that I ever did drugs before. I was in the mindset that I'm just never going to tell anybody I ever did drugs. I'm just going to lock that down. That's my secret. I'm going to pretend I never did drugs. I even told people, because as you guys have seen, my teeth were all busted off, black and brown, busted off at the gums. I told people that I got in a car accident and that the steering wheel went into my mouth and busted off all my teeth. It was an obvious lie, but people don't ask too many questions after that one. So that's what I told people about my teeth. But this time I decided I was going to be truthful. I was going to be honest about it. So I just opened up to these guys and told them my story. And that was when I realized how freaking inspirational my story was and how powerful my story was. And then I started hanging out with Shane was the guy who was leading the Bible study. He's the guy who gave me this Bible. Shane really pointed out some good qualities in me and really helped me develop a life with a relationship with God. And Shane really built me up into the person that I am today and helped me realize that I needed to share my story, that I had an ability to reach people. But that was my huge wake-up call. We started praying every single day. I started praying. I started reading the Bible. I started trying to believe this stuff. I started trying to work through my atheism, trying to get myself to become a believer. And I finally got my transfer. I was in that jail cell for about 2 weeks. doing this Bible study with Shane. And the whole time we're praying and we're talking about how I'm going to get a signature bond. That's what everybody was telling me when I would tell them what I was in for and all this stuff. Everybody was telling me, dude, you're gonna go see the judge. They're gonna hit you with a sig bond. It might slap you on the wrist for breaking whatever, but you're gonna get hit with a signature bond. You're gonna be out. Like, that's how it's gonna go. And I was like, I hope so, man. I'm praying for that, and I'm reading the Bible, and the guys in the cell are telling me that's what's going to happen. Even some of the guards that heard my story were telling me that's what's going to happen, man. You're going to go see the judge, and you're going to get a sig bond, and you're going to be out. And then I finally got my transfer. I got transferred, and I finally got to see the judge. And I go to see the judge. Well, they brought me down here, and they put me in a tiny little cell, just like that one. Just like that one. They put me in this tiny little cell, and I'm waiting to see the judge, and I stayed the night there. And then the next morning I would go to see the judge, and I was really hoping, praying. When I got there, I skipped a whole part. When I got there, this Bible didn't have this cover on it back then. It was its regular Bible cover. But they took this from me when I got transferred and I got to the new jail, and they take everything from you. You're not allowed to bring anything into the jail cell. But I figured they would let me bring the Bible, but he was like, no, you can't bring anything from outside into this cell with you. We'll get you a loaner Bible. We'll get you a Bible from our jail that you can take in there with you, but you can't take this one in there. And I was like, whatever, but that's okay. So then they threw me in this tiny little jail cell with this loaner Bible. That's all I had. So I sat in there praying that God would give me a signature bond. Please, God, if you just give me a signature bond, I will continue to go to church. I will pray to you. I will read your Bible. I will do all that stuff if you just get me a signature bond. And then I go to see the judge, and that's not at all what happened. The judge was not cool at all. Looked at all the stuff, just getting pulled over, driving without a license, like alcohol in the car, marijuana paraphernalia in the car, all this stuff. And like, he's like, dude, you're a high flight risk. Like, you're not getting a sig bond. We're hitting you with $1,000 cash bond, $1,000 cash bond for you to get out of this jail cell. And man, talk about instantly losing my faith. Talk about instantly losing all that prayer that I had done for 2 weeks, all that Bible reading, all that stuff instantly went out the window in that moment. I'm like, I go back to this little cell, and I destroyed that loaner Bible that they gave me. I flip it open, rip a page out, like scratch at the pages, spit in it, slam it shut, whip it against the wall, screaming at God. You call yourself a God, and you can't even get me a signature bond. Like, I even told him, I said, you say if I have faith the size of a mustard seed, I can move mountains. But I pray and read the Bible for 2 weeks, and you can't even get me a signature bond. What kind of God are you? And then the jailer comes over, and he's like, Matt, you got to stop. You got to calm down. Like, we're still doing court right over here. We can hear you. Like, we need you to calm down. And I was like, okay, all right. Yeah, you're right. All right, I'll calm down. So then I calmed down, but I just sat on the bunk in there staring at that loaner Bible that was now on the floor underneath the toilet over in the corner. And I'm like sitting there glaring at it, still muttering under my breath how terrible of a God Jesus is. And the guy comes back over. He's like, Matt, when they're done with court, I'll get you out. We'll make some calls. He's like, I'm sorry, man. I thought you were going to get a signature bond too. But do you have anybody you can call that might be able to come up with the money for you? And I was like, maybe. I was like, I got like all the money I've saved to get myself an apartment is almost $1,000. I was like, I guess I'll use that, and then I'll borrow a little bit of money from Ryan, and I can get myself out of here. So he brought me out, and he let me get my debit card, and we figured out. I called my bank and got my account and figured out how much money I had, and we figured out, like, I think I had like $982 or something like that, right? Like almost that $1,000 to get myself out. So I was like, all right, well, here's what we'll do. We'll run it for the 982. I'll call Ryan, I'll borrow $20 from him, and then when he gets here with the 20, then we can get me out of here. He's like, that's perfect. That'll work great. So he brings me out. We've set it all up. He runs it. He puts me back in the cell while it runs. Then he comes back. He says, Matt, we got a problem. I'm like, what? What's the problem? He's like, you had $982 in your account. We ran it for $982. The jail tacked on a 10% charge and it overdrafted your account. And I was like, oh man, that's so dumb. That's stupid. I said, all right, well, here's what we'll do. We'll sit back down. We'll figure this all out. We'll figure out what amount we need plus 10%. That'll equal 982. And then we'll run it again. He's like, that's exactly what we should have done the first time. He says, we can't do that now though, because I just overdrafted your account. Your funds are frozen for the next 3 days. So you're going to have to stay here for 3 days until those funds are released before we can try this again. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm losing it. Like, I'm losing it at this point. I'm like out of my mind, pissed off at this whole situation. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. I gave up. I decided, whatever. I guess I'm staying here for 3 days, and I'm not going to worry about it. Whatever. And he's like, well, at least call your buddy Ryan back and tell him so that, he knows and he doesn't have to come here with $20 or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, good point. So I called up Ryan and I'm like, yeah, man, tell him exactly what happened. They overdrafted my account. I got to stay here for the next 3 days and then you can come get me out. And Ryan got more pissed than I was. He was like, them mother effers, like, they always got to pull some crap to try and keep you there, blah, blah, blah. He's like, screw that, man. He says, I'm going to get the $1,000. I'll borrow it to you. Like, you can pay me back in 3 days? I was like, yes, I will pay you back in 3 days. He's like, all right, I'm going to grab $1,000. I'm going to come pull you out of jail. We're getting you out. And I was like, yes, awesome. Like, cool. Can't wait for that, And Ryan shows up, and this has now, in my mind, has vindicated to me that God isn't real, that all that Bible stuff was nonsense, that I ended up having to do the work myself to get myself out. So God is nonsense to me at this point now. And I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here. I did this all myself. I got myself out. And as I got myself all dressed, I'm heading towards the door, and the one jailer's like, oh yeah, Matt, here, and hands me back this Bible that Shane had given me. And I can't put into words how, when he handed me this Bible back, how it instantly hit me. Like, all that vindication that I was just talking about went out the window, and he handed me this back, and it hit me like, oh, God actually seen all of this. He isn't fake. He's actually real. He knew that I was going to throw a fit in that jail cell. He knew that I was going to lose my faith, and that I was going to scream, and that I was going to yell, and that I was going to rip pages out of the Bible, and I was going to spit in it. And he took this Bible away from me so that I couldn't rip up and destroy and spit on this one. Instead, he gave me that loaner Bible so that I could rip up and spit and destroy that one, because he knew that this Bible was going to mean a lot to me, and he helped me in that case and preserved it from me. It was like this instant mind-blowing epiphany that he was actually there, and that all of this thing that I just did and thought that it was on my own merit was actually him testing me, was actually him saying, okay, you want to get out, and you're going to keep praying to me if you get out. Okay, well, what if I can't get you that signature bond? Are you still gonna pray to me if it can't get you that signature bond? And right down the line, kept asking, okay, well, what if I do this? What if I can't get you that? What if I freeze your account for 3 days? Do you still want to get out? Do you still want this? And after all of it, it was like, bam, yes, he is real. He is really here with me. And after that day, my life really exploded. My life really exploded after that. It was shortly after that I joined an addiction recovery support group on Facebook. And I started sharing my story in there, like posts and stuff. and I started getting a lot of positive feedback from that, and developed until I eventually decided I was going to start my own page, and I started The Point of Change. I actually, before I started The Point of Change even, I got to go back and tell you this part of this story, how I went from that nasty meth mouth to the smile that you see today in that addiction recovery support group that I joined. I made a post one day because Ryan bought a new motorcycle. Here's actually a picture of Ryan with the motorcycle. That was the day this happened. Okay. That window you see behind Ryan there, while Ryan was talking to the guy about that motorcycle, I was standing by that window, and a little girl come up, and she told me she was 4 years old. So I still remember she's 4 years old. But she came up and she was like, "Hi." And I was like, "Hi, how are you?" And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, we're here to buy your daddy's motorcycle. My friend is just looking at his motorcycle." And while I was talking to her, I had that meth mouth, And while I'm talking to her, I see her eyes lock onto my teeth. She locks onto that nasty nonsense that I had. And of course, a child, she has no quarrels about just being blunt about it. So she looks at me with wide eyes, and she goes, "What happened to yours teeth?" And I was first of all, yours teeth is just adorable. Like, that was so cute. What happened to yours teeth? And I was like, I said, "I was really naughty and they ran away," is what I told her. And she says, "They ran away?" And I said, "Yep, they ran away." And she says, "Are they going to come back?" And I started laughing. I said, "No, honey, they're not going to come back. I got to buy all new ones. I got to go and buy them all." And I made a post about this in my addiction recovery support group. And I told everybody this story that had happened. And I said, "Guys, the moral of this story is not everybody knows that you're in recovery. Not everybody understands your story of addiction. But not to have that knee-jerk reaction and get offended or get ashamed or to feel less than, just to understand that they don't understand what you're going through, and just don't let it upset you, and don't let it disturb your movement forward in recovery, And I posted this in that addiction recovery support group. And a little later, I got a message from a woman from Cleveland, Ohio, and she said, "I'd like to help you get your teeth fixed." And I was like, "You have my full attention." And we had a little back and forth conversation. She asked me how long I'd been clean and some stuff like that, and what my drug of choice was, and told her everything. And she says, "I won't send you money, as you can understand. I won't do that." She said, "But could you give me the information to your dentist?" And I said, "Oh, okay." I messaged her back and I said, "I'm not sure what you're intending to do here, but anything you do will be so much appreciated, and I'll be sure to pay it forward. And I appreciate you so much." And I got a call from my dentist the next day. This woman paid for the entire procedure, for me to have 15 extractions, and for me to the whole thing. While she talked to me, actually, it wasn't the whole thing right away. At first, she was just paying for the extractions, but she told me that she wanted me to see this through. She said, "I'll pay for your extractions, but you have to buy the denture." It was $2,700 for the extractions and another $2,700 for the denture. And I said, "Okay, yeah, I will. If you'll pay for the extractions, I will pay for the denture. Let's do this." She paid for the extractions. I got the procedure done, had to wait 8 weeks for healing before I could go back in and get set up with my denture. In the meantime I got another job, and I got a really good job, and they had really good dental insurance. So anyways, time comes, it's been 8 weeks. Time is here for me to go get my denture, and I don't have the money. I don't have the $2,700 to get my denture made. And I was starting to feel like, well, I guess there's another promise I didn't keep. I'm not going to be able to do this, And And the dentist calls me up like just a few days before I'm supposed to be going in, and before a few days before I wasn't going to be able to make it. A dentist calls me up and they said, hey, your new insurance kicked in at your new job, and it actually backdated and paid some money on your extractions. They said, so we have some money coming back for your extractions. So we need the number for the woman who paid for your extractions so we can give her that money back. Can we get the number from you? And I was like, yeah, you bet. So I got a hold of the woman and I let her know what was happening, and I gave them her number. And she calls me back up and she says, Matt, did they tell you how much money they're sending me? And I was like, no, they didn't tell me how much. They just told me they needed your number. And she says, they're sending me back half of the money. Like out of $2,700, they're sending me back half of it. Your insurance paid 50%. And I was like, oh, wow, well, that's awesome, And she says, yeah, well, here's the thing. She says, I don't need that money back. She says, as far as I'm concerned, that money was given to you, to get your teeth fixed. She says, so I talked to them. They're going to keep that money with your new insurance. With that money, I'm going to send them a couple $100 more and they're going to make your denture for you. Like, what? Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe how God works in ways like that. So that woman ended up paying for the entire procedure for me to have my dentures fixed. And I told her it would not go, that I would pay forward. So the point of change is kind of part of this is me paying that forward and me not letting what she did for me go in vain, and using the confidence that she gave me to put my face up here on Facebook and share my story. And I started this page and I started making videos in my best friend's garage. I was still living at Ryan's house at that time, still didn't have a pot to piss in, didn't have nothing. As you can see in this picture, I had recently had my top teeth removed. Didn't have a top denture yet. But I decided to start something. So I started the Point of Change. I set up out in Ryan's garage. I put a cooler, and then I put a cardboard box on top of that cooler, and then I balanced a phone stand on top of there, and I put my phone up there, and I would make live videos in Ryan's garage. And on top of that, I started actually public speaking. Here's a picture from my first speaking engagement at the local library. I walked into the library, literally typed up a page like a biography of myself. I printed it out. I went and paid 10 cents for the print of it. I took it hot off of the printer and walked right over to the manager of the library's office and knocked on her door and was like, hi, I'm a motivational speaker. I see that you have speakers here. I was wondering if I could present here. And she was like, oh my God, that'd be great. And so got my first speaking presentation right away and spoke at the local library. And then a little while after that, I spoke at the college here in town. I actually went over to the University of Whitewater and shared my story with the students over there, students in the Christian group. I got that gig through my church. I was doing a Bible study up the road here, and actually the guy who ran the Bible study, the pastor, he did the pastoring at the college too, so he set me up with that speaking engagement. And then it was shortly after that I landed the one that I was really looking forward to. And this is me speaking on the stage at my local theater up north in my hometown. I got the opportunity to go back home and share my story up there. And I want to share with you just a little bit of a story from that because I think it's really cool. How far are we into? Oh, we're an hour, 40 minutes in. I knew this was going to be a long one, guys. I knew it. But thank you guys so much for sticking through it with me. Anybody who's been here from the beginning, you guys are awesome. If you joined me along the way, you're great. Thank you guys so much for being here. So I was getting set to go back home to speak at the local theater and to speak at all the local high schools in my hometown area. And I was feeling very overwhelmed by this. This is only my third, fourth, and fifth speaking engagements. I've never done this before. And that Sunday before I left, before I went back home, the message at church was Jesus returns home with a message of hope. That was what they were talking about. And I came in the door and they handed me the program and it says, Jesus returns home with a message of hope. And I was like, oh, that's synchronicity right there. Like, this is perfect. I'm going to be going home to share a message of hope. This will be such good inspiration for me. And if you know the story of what happened when Jesus went home to share his message of hope, it didn't exactly end well for him. so they tell us about this. They tell us how Jesus returned home to share a message of hope. And Luke, the Gospel of Luke, says that he had no power there. And I don't remember which gospel it is that explains it farther, that the people got upset and actually tried to throw Jesus off of a cliff. They chased him out of town and tried to throw him off a cliff, and he blended in with the crowd and was able to escape and get away. And I'm hearing all this and I'm like, what the heck? This was supposed to inspire me. I'm like, Jesus, I'm going home to share a message of hope. Jesus went home to share a message of hope and they tried to throw him off a cliff. How am I supposed to do better than Jesus did? That was my question. Like, how am I going to be any better than Jesus, And that evening, I was sitting around and I had all this stuff on my mind, and I decided, all right, I'm going to go to Walmart and I'm going to buy a movie. I'm going to take $20. I'm going to go to Walmart. I'm going to buy a movie because I didn't have any streaming services or anything like that back in those days. So I decided, all right, I'm going to walk out to Walmart. I'm going to go and buy a movie and get my mind off of this, right? So I go out to Walmart, and as I'm going towards the movie section, I walk towards the book section, and there on the end of the books is the Bible section. And I was like, maybe instead of buying a movie, maybe I'll buy a book. And in the Bible section there was this, the Action Bible, which is a comic book version of the Bible, which is really awesome. And the illustrations are really well done. And I really enjoy reading this. But I decided, you know what, instead of buying a movie, and this was $20 right there. And I was like, you know what, instead of buying a movie, I'm going to buy this, and I'm going to go home and read this instead. So I spent my $20 on the Action Bible, and I went back home and I opened it up. Now, remember that the question I had in my head that morning after service was, how am I going to do better than Jesus did? And I get home and I open this, and the first inscription right here says, I tell you the truth. Anyone who has faith in me will do what I have been doing. He will do even greater things than these. Jesus Christ, John 14:12. Like another one of those moments of synchronicity of Jesus telling me, hey, you know what? Just believe in me. You can do better things than I have. You can go home and not get thrown off a cliff. That was one of those beautiful messages that got sent to me. There's been things like that throughout my speaking career that have always just matched up and moved me into synchronicity and kept me moving forward. As you guys seen at the beginning of this, with someone messaging me out of nowhere with a picture of my dad's house right as I'm uploading a picture of my dad's house. Like, those synchronicity moments have been amazing. And it's been a fun journey. I got a few pictures here that we can go through real quick. They'll get some chuckles out of you. Some stuff we've done here on the Point of Change. Here was the first Christmas video I ever made. If anyone remembers that, I made a video where I said that wasn't going to dress up for Christmas, and then slowly through the video I put more and more stuff on until by the end of the video that was me. Here's St. Patty's Day, if anyone remembers St. Patty's Day, where I was a leprechaun at the end of the rainbow with my pot of goals. Here's a good character, Marty Jablonski. Oh, Marty's a lot of fun. He's a good character to do. And here's one that everybody misses that I really wish we could bring back. But there's Courtney the Clown, everybody. Anybody remember Courtney? Any fans of Courtney out there? You guys, I wish this filter was still available because Courtney was so much fun. Here's me as an old man. I made a video on different ways that you can hide that you're missing teeth, and the main ending of the video was that you could just dress up like an old man and then people won't ask why you're missing teeth. And then, of course, we have the time that the devil inside of me came out a little bit, and we made a couple different videos with Maddie as Satan. And then, of course, I would be doing us all a disservice if I didn't include one of the highlights of my career when we had Tommy Chong come on here and share with us and talk about cannabis-based recovery. Tommy was an awesome guest. I loved that we had him on here individually, and then we had him come back for a recovery panel as well. So Tommy's a returning guest here at the Point of Change. Very thankful for everything we've done. But one of the greatest things that has happened to me in my recovery is that woman right there. That's the first picture me and Caitlin ever took together right there on the couch downstairs. In 2020, I finally got up the nerve to ask that girl to be my girlfriend, and she joined me on that, and the rest is history, man. Here we are with our dogs in sweaters by the lake in Colorado when we took a road trip down Route 66 down to Texas, and then from Texas went up to Colorado and stayed for a week out in the mountains, and wished my dad a happy birthday from the top of a mountain because my dad's ashes are spread on top of the mountains in Colorado. And here, this is one of my favorite pictures in the world. This is the moment I asked Caitlin to marry me. Over here, this is Caitlin just before I asked her to marry me. And this is Caitlin in the very moment that I dropped down to my knee. And that was a live video right here on Facebook. We caught that moment live. So there you have it, guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. We went for an hour and 45 minutes. I really appreciate everybody being patient. I know we dwindled down, that's for sure. We started with around 20 and we got down to 5. One by one, we're knocking them out, you know. But I'm very thankful for everybody that stuck through all the way. I appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I really hope this story brought somebody some inspiration and motivation to keep going. You guys are the best. Yeah, I appreciate everybody being here. Very soon, we're going to get Sean Wise on here. Goldberg from the Mighty Ducks. If you guys have seen that movie from the 90s, he is now 3 years clean and sober. And we're working on getting him to come on here and share his story with us. So if anybody's interested in helping us with that, go ahead and hit me up with a DM, and I can tell you a way that you can help us get that one pulled off. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and stay clean.